Hey there, it's Jen and I'm here with another layout for Pink Paislee. Today I'm going to be trying to use these little 2x2 paper pads. So I have the ones from the Pick Me Up collection and the ones from the Turn the Page collection, and I'm scrapbooking these two smaller photos, and I'm going to cut them down to the same size as these little 2x2 squares. So I'm just going to create a simple grid. I hope that this layout will be something that's quick and easy. That's my plan anyway. So I'll go ahead and put you on fast forward and get started. So to start, I'm cutting down a piece of white cardstock because I know I want to use that sunburst pattern as a background. I've wanted to do it ever since I saw Raquel Bowman do it a long time ago when the collection first came out. She did it, I think, on an 8.5 by 11 layout. But I really love the way this looks around the edge. It just has a really fun look. And so I knew I wanted to try that. So what I'm doing it now is I'm punching my photos out, and these are a little bit larger than the 2x2 squares. They're about 2.5 by 2.5, and for a minute I think I'm just going to go with that size and just mix the squares in with that size of photo, but I will end up cutting them down a little bit here later. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just going through and finding things that kind of relate to the topic. So these are a couple of photos of my daughter and my husband sleeping outside on the trampoline, which is something that we did a lot when we first got it a few years ago. Well, I guess it was not last summer, but the summer before. And it's something I remember doing as a kid, so I wanted to make that correlation. So I'm just picking out some fun colors. Of course, I want to match those colors that are in the background, and luckily both of these collections, they go really well together. I kind of thought I would maybe use that word, that 2x2 square that says wonderful, as a bit of a title, and I thought that the little hat was fun, and I didn't know when else I might use that. It says let the good times roll. I actually will end up not using either of those on this layout, but they are very cute and I will use them someday. So I was struggling a bit with my adhesive, so I switched to a different one. I have here right now some watercolors, and I thought, let's just put a little bit of color on the background. I thought about like kind of painting a tic-tac-toe square so that each one of the pieces had a little home to live in, and I hated it immediately. It did not need this because it's got the sunburst on the background. I feel like it just doesn't go with it. So I thought I'll just make a pattern and then the stuff will just lay on top of it. And I just hate it. So I will take this off in a minute, and I'm just going to use plain white because this was not working for me. But you know, sometimes you don't know until you try. And luckily I have a lot of white cardstock, and I can always use the back of that or use that on a different layout. It just didn't work for this one, so that's okay. I thought about cutting out the center of this paper, but I have so much paper, I decided against it. But you definitely could do that if you wanted to use it on another layout sometime. So here I just kind of used my T-square ruler to get these positioned a little bit. I've already cut down my photos so that they're smaller, and I just used my T-square ruler to do one of the rows, and then I kind of eyeballed the rest of it. So I'm putting down all of these pieces, and I'm lifting some of them up on foam squares. I've got the two photos up on foam squares, and then the red or the word wonderful, so that there's one popped up thing on each row. And here I'm going to go ahead and look through my embellishments and think about just adding some things to the squares. Something I love about a grid design is that it's really easy to embellish because each little grid space becomes a home for embellishment if you want it to work that way. And that's kind of what I was thinking here. So at this point I thought, let's get the title down before I embellish anymore. So I'm trying to figure out what that might be, and I'm trying to see if there's any like pre-made words I could already use. I thought about good times from that Wild Child collection. I thought about spelling out the word outside with these thickers from the Turn the Page collection, but I just didn't like the way they were looking. And so I will change my mind, and I'm going to use these little thickers in the navy blue, which I love. These thickers are the thickers that keep on giving. I love them so much. I've spelled so many things with them. There aren't apostrophes, but I just used a period for an apostrophe, and you get the idea. So I think that works fine. I actually ended up using some other thickers from my stash. These are actually from Shimelle's, I can't remember what it's called. little by little collection, and I just liked the navy with it a little bit better, so I decided to go ahead and use those. But of course, could use any colors that match with your layout if you're wanting to recreate something like this. It was so easy to do with those squares. So again, now's the fun part where I'm just going to look through my embellishments and decide what I want to add to this. And it ended up that the Wild Child collection had a lot of embellishments that really worked with this because they're sleeping outside. So there's a lot of adventure stuff. And on the boy side of the Wild Child collection, because there's a girl and a boy version, there's a lot of space stuff, which worked, I thought, for this too, since they were sleeping outside under the stars. And so you'll see me adding that little thing that says explore the unknown, the telescope. I really like that. And at this point, I'm just kind of randomly adding things to the squares. But in a minute here, I'm going to decide to do it kind of by color a little bit. I found this die cut that says sleep under the stars or maybe it just says under the stars. Anyway, I thought I have to use this because that's exactly what they're doing. When else will I use this? And so I decided to take off that wonderful 2x2 square and put the tent in its place. It kind of has the same, obviously it's a little bit of a different shape than a square, but it has the same, it kind of takes up the same visual weight. It's a similar size, and so I just replaced one of the grid squares with it. So you can always do that, replace a square with a photo or with an embellishment, and it can work out really well. So at this point, I kind of decide maybe what I should do is try to put things by color. And after I get this little tent stuck down, I'm going to kind of go through my embellishments a little bit and try to find some things that will match by color that I can just put on each square. And I think I do end up moving the squares around. I was trying to get a good balance of where I could put the embellishment and different things based on the color of the square. And so I just kind of fussed around until I got it just right, just the way I wanted it to be. And I didn't want both of the blues on the bottom. And so I will switch things around and end up putting that navy up at the top right. So you'll see me switch it up here. I'm just like, this isn't working. What should I move? And I didn't love the blue next to the aqua for some reason, that lighter blue. And so I was thinking I got to change my mind. And then I thought, well, maybe I should switch this up completely. Anyway, I moved things around a lot. And then this is where they kind of end up. I knew I wanted that star 2x2 square for sure because it has stars and they're sleeping under the stars, so I thought it needed that. I'm going to pop up most of the little pieces that are going to go on top of the squares just because I want them to have a little bit more pow, I guess, if that's a thing. And I know that my squares aren't straight right now, and I'm just going to play around with them until they are. And they're just going to be good enough because they're not exactly straight, and that's okay with me. So I did decide I want to use that sticker that says adventure. Again, these are mostly from the Wild Child, all of the embellishments, but the papers, the 2x2 squares came from the Pick Me Up collection and the Turn the Page collection. So yeah, I'm liking the way that it's looking, but the Wild Child collection is very cute. The girl and the boy version are both awesome. My girl does a lot of the things that are on the boy version, and anyway, I think that they're just both really fun. So I would definitely suggest taking a look if you have not, if you have kids especially. I decided to type up my journaling, and I just did it on my typewriter, and I did it in a space that I knew would fit on the squares, and I just cut it up into strips. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my journaling on the squares that don't have embellishment on them, so you can see that I have 3 embellishments. They're kind of going zigzag on the layout. The planet, the telescope, and then the wild and free at the bottom right. And so on those other 3 pattern squares, that's where I'm going to put my journaling. And basically I'm talking about what I told you before, that since we got the trampoline, they've been sleeping outside a lot. Malia can usually convince Philip to do it with her, to sleep on the tramp with her. And I remembered sleeping out on the trampoline when I was young, and how it was so freezing in the middle of the night and so hot when you woke up with the sun. And just reminiscing a little bit there. So
I'm going to just glue them all down, and I kind of haphazardly glued them. I wasn't being too careful about things. And usually when I have word strips, I like to make sure that none of the ends line up. So I like to make them kind of go back and forth. And you can see the way that looks as I'm just gluing them down there. None of the edges of the papers line up. And I like the way that looks. It looks intentionally messy, kind of. So I'm going to stamp the date, and what I decide to do is actually, since they slept outside all summer, I think those two pictures are actually from 2 different nights. So I'm just stamping all of the months of the summer of 2016. So I stamped it in navy blue ink from Allie Edwards. I can't remember what it's called, but I'll link in the video description. I'll link to everything in the video description as I usually do. And then here I just am adding some puffy stickers. I thought it might be fun to add in some stars. And again, I'm trying to do it kind of by color. And so I put the blue star on the blue and the yellow on the yellow. And I'm just kind of playing around until I have some embellishments everywhere. I will add stars to pretty much all of those little squares. And I think it looks fun. It's like, I don't know if I was super happy with the balance in the end, but I think it looks fine. It looks fun. And I really enjoyed putting this together. It really was a pretty simple process. And if you already have the idea to go off of, now that I've done this once, if I wanted to scrap lift myself, it'd be really easy to do. I'm going to add a little bit of gold color shine just to give it a little bit more of an ethereal feel. Oh, yellow. Sorry, not gold, yellow. And then that's going to finish it up. So I hope that you have enjoyed. I will link to the Pink Paislee blog in the video description where you can see these close-up photos and more details about the layout. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.